In the bustling city of Lagos, a place where skyscrapers touched the clouds and the streets never slept, lived Pastor Zion and his wife, Deborah. Theirs was a story of faith, ambition, and a love that had withstood the test of time until it was challenged by forces beyond their imagination. Pastor Zion had served in ministry for 13 years, a journey paved with promise and reverence. Raised in a devout Christian home, his parents had always believed he was destined for greatness. Even as a child, Zion showed an extraordinary connection to his faith. His prayers seemed to move mountains, and his passion for God radiated wherever he went. It was no surprise when he pursued theology after his graduation, attending a prestigious seminary to become a pastor. During his university days, his peers often remarked that Zion was different, anointed. They would say, when Zion completed his training, the doors of opportunities swung wide open. One of the city's most prominent and populated churches offered him a position as the assistant minister in charge. The package was beyond his wildest dreams: an official car, a luxurious apartment, and a salary that ensured financial security. Zion accepted without hesitation, recognizing it as God's divine favor. His dedication was evident from the start. The senior pastor of the church often praised his zeal and how God seemed to use him to bring people closer to the kingdom. It was in this church that Zion met Deborah, the daughter of a respected church elder. Deborah was a vision of grace, intelligence, and unwavering faith. Their love blossomed quickly, and within a year, they were married. For the next decade, Zion and Deborah built a beautiful life together, raising their two children, Joshua and Emanuela. Yet, as time passed, Deborah began planting seeds of different vision in Zion's heart. "You are called for something bigger," she would say, her voice soft yet insistent. "You have a divine anointing. Why stay under someone else when you could lead your own flock?" At first, Zion dismissed her words. He valued loyalty and saw no reason to leave the ministry that had been so generous to him. But Deborah's persistence chipped away at his resolve. Over time, her words started to feel like truth, like destiny. Despite the warnings and pleas of colleagues and friends, Zion made the bold decision to leave the church and start his own ministry. He used his savings to rent a modest hall and purchase the necessary equipment. His initial optimism was fueled by the knowledge that God had always been with him. The first few months were promising. Zion's charisma and reputation drew people in. The congregation grew steadily, and his sermons became the talk of the community. Yet, as time passed, the challenges of running a church on his own began to mount. The offerings were meager, unable to keep up with the rising expenses of both the ministry and his family. The money that once flowed freely dwindled, forcing Zion to make difficult sacrifices. He moved his family to a smaller apartment, sold their second car, and transferred Joshua and Emanuela to a more affordable school. Deborah, once a source of encouragement, grew restless. The strain of their circumstances began to weigh on her, and one evening, in the heat of an argument, she threatened to leave. Zion was devastated. The thought of losing his family pushed him to seek answers, and he began reaching out to other pastors in the city for guidance. That was when he met Pastor Rhema. Pastor Rhema was unlike anyone Zion had met before. He was young, charismatic, and exuded a confidence that seemed unshakable. His church was one of the largest in the city, and his lifestyle was a stark contrast to Zion's struggles. He drove luxurious cars, wore designer suits, and lived in a sprawling mansion. When they first met, Zion couldn't help but wonder how Rhema had achieved so much success. What was the secret? Was it stronger faith, or better strategy, or something more divine? "You are struggling, my brother," Pastor Rhema said after their third meeting. They sat in Rhema's opulent office, surrounded by plush leather chairs and shelves lined with books on prosperity and faith. "I see your potential. You have the fire, the calling. but you lack the tools to ignite the kind of success you desire. Zion hesitated. I've been praying, fasting. I've done everything I know to do. Still, the congregation isn't growing the way I expected. My family is suffering. I don't know what else to do. Rhema leaned forward, his smile enigmatic. Prayer is powerful, but sometimes, my brother, we need to help ourselves. You see, there are realms of power that go beyond what most people understand. Realms that can elevate you to where you need to be. Zion frowned, unsure of what Rhema meant. What are you saying? Rhema's voice lowered, his tone conspiratorial. I'm saying that success in ministry isn't just about preaching. It's about knowing how to attract the right people, how to unlock the resources of heaven and earth. I can guide you, Zion, but you must be willing to follow the path. The words lingered in Zion's mind long after he left Rhema's office. That night, as he lay beside Deborah, he thought about everything his friend had said. Desperation gnawed at him. Was this the answer he had been seeking? Could Rhema truly help him turn his church and his life around? It wasn't long before Zion found himself back in Rhema's office, ready to hear more. Rhema welcomed him with open arms, his smile warm and reassuring. You've made the right choice, Rhema said, pouring them both glasses of sparkling water. But let me be clear. This path isn't for the faint of heart. It requires commitment, sacrifice, and an open mind. What kind of sacrifice? Zion asked, his voice trembling. Rhema's smile didn't waver. Nothing you can't handle for now. We'll start small. 7 live female dogs. Their spirits carry a unique energy that we need to channel. Zion's stomach turned. Dogs. What does that have to do with ministry? Everything, Rhema replied smoothly. The spiritual world is vast and complex, Zion. These rituals are simply tools, ways to amplify the anointing already on your life. Trust me, the result will be worth it. Zion's mind raised. He thought of Deborah's threats, his children's needs, and the church dwindling attendance. Against his better judgment, he nodded. I'll do it. Rhema wasted no time. He arranged for the dogs to be procured from a nearby village and guided Zion through the ritual. The process was unsettling, but Rhema's confidence was infectious. Within weeks, Zion began to see changes. More people started attending his services, the offerings increased, and the energy in the church was electric. For the first time in months, Zion felt hopeful, but hope soon gave way to greed. Zion basked in the newfound attention his church was receiving. The once empty pews were now filled with eager faces, hanging on to his every word. People whispered about his powerful sermons, his miraculous healings, and the sudden surge of divine energy that seemed to radiate from him. But it wasn't enough. The expenses of maintaining the church and his family's growing needs quickly caught up with him. The money coming in was more than before, but it still wasn't sufficient to sustain the life he envisioned. During one particularly frustrating evening, Zion called Rhema, pouring out his concerns. I don't understand, Zion said, pacing his small living room. I've done everything you asked, but the results aren't what I expected. Your church is overflowing. Your life is abundance. What am I missing? Rhema's voice on the other end of the line was calm, almost amused. You are doing well, Zion. If you want to reach the level I am at, you have to go deeper. There's always a higher price for greater blessings. Zion hesitated. What kind of price? Come and see me, Rhema replied. This conversation isn't one for the phone. The next day, Zion found himself sitting across Rhema again. The tension in the air thick. Rhema's usual charm was replaced by a grave seriousness. There's another step, Rhema said, one that will take you to the next level. But it's not for everyone. Zion swallowed hard. What is it? You need human organs, Rhema said bluntly. The words hit Zion like a freight train. He stared at Rhema, his mind reeling. Organs? What are you talking about? I can't. I won't. You won't have to harm anyone, Rhema interrupted smoothly. There are people who handle this kind of thing. They source what you need. There's a market for it, Zion. You'll be surprised how easy it is. Zion shook his head, his hands trembling. I don't think I can do this. It's too far. Rhema leaned forward, his eyes looking into Zion's. Do you think I got here without sacrifice? Without making hard choices? Look around you, Zion. Everything you see, my church, my word, my influence, it all came because I was willing to do what others couldn't. And I'm only helping you because I see your potential. Don't let fear hold you back. The words echo in Zion's mind long after he left Rhema's office. He spent sleepless nights wrestling with his conscience, torn between his faith and his desperation. But desperation won. With Rhema's guidance, Zion made contact with the suppliers. The transaction was discreet, efficient, and chillingly impersonal. The ritual was far more intense than the one before, but Zion forced himself to go through with it. The results were almost immediate. His church exploded in size. People came from far and wide, drawn by his growing reputation as a man of God who could deliver miracles. Healings became commonplace, and testimonies poured in. Money followed. Zion was finally able to provide the life he had always dreamed of for his family. He bought a new house, a luxury car, and sent his children back to their prestigious school. Deborah was ecstatic, her faith in him renewed. But Zion wasn't satisfied. Despite everything he had gained, he couldn't shake the nagging feeling that it wasn't enough. He wanted more wealth, more influence, more power. He returned to Rhema once again, seeking answers. Rhema's response was both shocking and tempting. The next step, Rhema said, his voice as calm as ever, is to sleep with 10 virgins every month. Their purity holds a unique spiritual energy that can propel you to heights you can't even imagine. Zion recalled in horror. No, I can't. I've never been with anyone but my wife. This is too much. Rhema's smile was patient, almost pitying. I understand. I felt the same way when I was at this point. But think about everything you stand to gain. Think about your family, your church, and you don't have to do it alone. I will guide you, just as I've guided you so far. Days turned into weeks as Zion wrestled with the decision. He thought about his wife, his children, and everything they had endured. He thought about the church, the people who now looked to him for guidance and miracles. When he finally returned to Rhema, his voice was barely a whisper. How do I do it? Rhema's plan was cunning as it was sinister. Start a group for teenage girls in your church. Offer scholarship, empowerment programs, things that will attract both the guests and their parents. Once they are in, you can take your pick. Zion's stomach churned, but he nodded. He told himself it was for the greater good. The plan worked flawlessly. Parents urged their daughters to join, thrilled by the opportunities the program offered. Deborah became the group's mentor, unaware of the true purpose behind it. Using a substance provided by the court, Zion began to manipulate the girls, luring them into private counseling sessions and hypnotizing them. The act was abhorrent, but Zion pushed his guilt aside, focusing only on the results. And the results were staggering. Zion's church became a global phenomenon. He bought multiple properties, traveled the world, and provided his family with a life of unimaginable luxuries. But his success came at a cost he could never have foreseen. One afternoon, just hours before their usual Thursday service, Zion and Deborah returned from a trip. Pastor Zion was in his office, speaking with one of the young girls who was under his wife's mentorship. He was so caught up in the conversation that he forgot to lock the door, something he usually did not keep their meeting private. Meanwhile, Deborah had been trying to reach him on the phone, but Zion hardly answered. Growing concerned, she decided to go to his office and speak with him in person. As she made her way down the hall, she passed Sister Vivian, the personal assistant who was busy with her usual tasks. Vivian saw Deborah heading towards the office but didn't stop her. As protocol had always allowed pastor spouses to enter freely, she didn't think twice about it. But when Deborah entered the office, what she saw made her heart stop. There, in the dim light, was her husband Zion, violating one of the youngest under her care. The shock and disbelief hit her like a physical blow. Her vision blurred, her knees buckled, and everything went black. Deborah collapsed to the floor, the world around her spinning. The nightmare she had feared had come true. Pastor Zion rushed to his wife with fear and trembling, shouting for Vivian in a panic. As Vivian and the other church staff hurried into the office, they found Deborah collapsed on the floor with the teenagers still nearby. Without wasting a moment, they rushed Deborah to a private hospital. Meanwhile, word of the shocking scene spread quickly, like wildfire, through the church and the community. As the shocking event unfolded, the community was left in a state of disbelief and confusion. Pastor Zion's once spotless reputation crumbled in an instant, and the truth of his dark action began to unravel. With Deborah in critical condition and the church in chaos, questions of redemption, guilt, and the price of ambition hung heavily in the air. As rumors spread like wildfire, the lives of Zion, Deborah, and the young girl involved were changed forever. The path ahead was uncertain, filled with heart-wrenching decisions and the hope for salvation or destruction. What will happen next? Will Zion face the consequences of his actions? Can Deborah ever trust him again? And what about the young girl who now carries the weight of Zion's sins on her shoulders? Stay tuned for part 2, where the story deepens and more secrets are revealed. The journey is far from over. Let me know in the comment section if you would like to see part 2 and how soon you like it to be posted. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share. Hit the notification bell so you'll be updated whenever I post new and exciting videos. See you in the next one.